Hey guys, what's up? It's me, Thomas. Today we're back here with Extra History. We got part 2 to the Garibaldi thing, unifying Italy. Today, 11 country. So, yeah. He found himself a, wife and Anita. So now it's off to the homeland of Italy. Not sure how things are going to go for our friends here, but let's go check it out. Be sure to like, subscribe for more. Hope you enjoy. Here we go.
January 12th, 1840. Anita searches the battlefield for the body of her lover and the father of the baby that she still carries. Currently, she is a prisoner of Brazilian soldiers, captured in a battle where she was managing the rebel ammunition train. Her captors claim her man is dead, but do allow her to look for him with an escort. She finds no body. So, that night, driven only by blind hope, she sneaks away, steals a horse, and rides into the darkness. Gunshots crack behind her, and with the thud of lead-splitting meat, her horse collapses. She's thrown, landing hard. Still, she gets up, sprinting into the jungle, shouting, more gunshots, running water, wait a minute, there's a river. She wades in, then lets the current take her away from the arguing voices. 4 long days, she wanders without food until she sees another person who takes her to a group of rebels led by the man she calls her husband, the very much alive Garibaldi.
Lucky break.
Thanks so much to Factor for always keeping us extra historians well-fed fast. When Garibaldi and Anita went into the Ragamuffin War, they were both, for the first time, experiencing intense combat. But within months of Anita joining him, the couple became veterans of 2 battles. They even helped spread the revolution north to a nearby province who had also declared themselves a republic. And in none of these was Anita in the rear. She fought in the front rank, battling with sword and pistol and urging on any who retreated. An image that deeply appealed to the romantic Garibaldi. Because when we say romantic, we mean it with a capital R, as in the cultural movement of Romanticism, which was obsessed with heroic individualism, the exotic, the tragic, stubborn idealism, and the rejection of society's rules. Basically, Garibaldi had a flair for the dramatic and a love for imagery that belonged in a novel. And boy, oh boy, did their relationship definitely belong in a novel. They shared adventure and danger together, but also knowledge. Garibaldi was a sailor, a vocation that was rare among the rebels. But from Anita, he learned new skills that would help fashion him into an international celebrity. Raised in the gaucho cattle culture of southern Brazil, Argentina, and Uruguay, Anita was essentially a cowgirl. One of the reasons Garibaldi found her so sexy was that she was a very talented rider, skills she passed on to her man. Also, Garibaldi adapted other aspects of gaucho culture, which would become part of his signature style. He began wearing a poncho and a wide-brimmed hat, while also growing his beard out real big and bushy. Yet this was not a novel. It was a war, and real life can take frightening turns. Like in January of 1840, when Garibaldi's forces were badly scattered by the Imperials, and the pregnant Anita was captured. Because though she escaped and managed to find Garibaldi, she was very much worse for wear. Shortly afterward, while living in a safe house as soldiers combed the country for them, she gave birth to their first child. But he had been marked by her escape. His skull misshapen due to her fall from the horse we mentioned before. But there, for 12 days, they got to live as a normal family. No fighting, no close scrapes, just a couple, their newborn child, and several dozen Imperial soldiers moving in on their perimeter. In perhaps the most legendary act of their lives, the pair fled on horseback, Anita clutching the baby to her as she rode with a pistol in her offhand. Or at least that's how the statue she's buried under depicts it. Because over the years, this couple was about to get extremely mythologized. Currently,
not a lot of first-person sources, and I guess they want that, feminist icon. But still, even if that was true, the fact that she was, shooting with the baby there. I'm surprised they were constantly getting away. Just shoot. I imagine the baby would cry and they were like, "Hey, there they are." I don't know. Sorry, I'm just those babies tend to cry. So you gotta admit, you can see it happening. Unless anyone else. Anyway.
They were known as notable characters, but soon they would be upgraded to heroes, and from there to legends. Yet despite that growing notoriety, or perhaps because of it, the rebel republic dismissed Garibaldi from service. See, while the war was not going great for the rebels, by mid-1840, the Brazilian government had decided to negotiate. With 3,000 dead and the government needing space to deal with other uprisings, both sides were working their way towards an off-ramp. The eventual deal would convince both rebel republics to dissolve and reintegrate with Brazil in exchange for reversing the economic policies that caused the conflict in the first place. But to make that kind of deal, the rebels did need to get rid of a certain flamboyant foreign rebel. So, they gave Garibaldi 900 cattle as thanks and suggested that he kindly go somewhere else. So he and Anita went south toward Uruguay, a country that had itself broken away from Brazil and given the rebels aid and support during the uprising. Eventually, they moved to Uruguay's capital of Montevideo, got married, and he continued his revolutionary life as a math teacher and occasional shipbroker. The 900 cows mostly died, sadly, which is generally the problem with using animals as currency. Garibaldi went back to obscurity, remaking a name for himself in the city's large Italian expatriate community, and occasionally doing favors for young Italy and other revolutionaries. But thankfully, that boredom was short-lived, because Uruguay also happened to be in a war, the details of which are complicated, to say the least, but to vastly oversimplify. After Uruguay won its independence, tensions simmered between the first two presidents, resulting in a civil conflict that endangered foreign trade and river access, dragging in both South American and European powers. Fleeing Montevideo, the second president of Uruguay sought backing from the dictator of Argentina, a strongman who murdered political opponents with death squads. Garibaldi had arrived just as things started to go badly for the Colorados, the leftist party ruling Montevideo. Now, for years, a French fleet had blockaded Buenos Aires, but after reaching a diplomatic solution, Argentina organized an invasion of Uruguay using both their own troops and the conservative Uruguayan Blancos faction living in exile in Argentina. By 1843, Montevideo was itself under siege and would remain so for nearly 8 years, which meant that the Colorados were looking for someone with experience running a small navy, preferably, if they also came pre-installed with a large army of their own. And Garibaldi fits those criteria quite well. See, Montevideo was a city two-thirds comprised of foreigners, with Italians making up the largest group, 4,000 strong. And most of them were leftist Italian revolutionaries, waiting for a chance to take the fight back to the homeland. Which meant that Garibaldi needed to find a bunch of cheap uniforms quickly to cover his outfit, and he just so happened to be in luck. Due to that Argentinian blockade cutting off exports, a massive shipment of red shirts were sitting in a warehouse. They were cheap and hardy, because originally they were made for men who worked in slaughterhouses to hide the blood. And Garibaldi's Italian Legion, who would come to be known as the Red Shirts, would use that function in full. In 1842, even before the siege of Montevideo began, Garibaldi took his flotilla of 3 small ships and went to war again, largely as a liaison to the French and British navies, who had come into the war on Uruguay's side to enforce yet another blockade on Buenos Aires. His first expedition saw him suffer a major defeat, returning to Montevideo to fundraise for more ships, but his other operations were far more successful. A little too successful, actually. At first serving as a junior partner to the British and French, he later successfully cleared Argentine forces from the upper Uruguay River and assisted in the blockade of Buenos Aires. And in doing so, he made a lot of money on the side. See, despite the fact he was not supposed to prey on commercial shipping, he did pillage enough cargo that Argentinian captains were instructed to treat him like a pirate. But you know who didn't think he was a pirate? Well, the government of Uruguay, for one. When the blockade ended and he returned to Montevideo in 1847, he was made commander of the entire defense force. And it was there that he earned his fame. Garibaldi's outsized personality, his romance with his soldier wife Anita, and the image of the Italian Legion and their red shirts made excellent fodder for European and American journalists filing stories about the conflict. They talked about Garibaldi like he was a character from a novel, and his Italian Legion as mythical heroes. We are being quite literal here, for by 1849, Garibaldi had literally become a literary character when Alexandre Dumas wrote a historical novel about the siege called The New Troy, directly comparing Garibaldi and his companions to the heroes of Homer's Iliad. To Europeans and Americans, the Colorados seemed like a shining example of liberal ideals and nobility in a continent ruled by kings and military strongmen. Though the reality, of course, was more complicated. Native Uruguayans were increasingly dismayed at how foreigners like Garibaldi seemed to be staffing their whole government, and was worried about a colonial takeover. As a result, Garibaldi was forced to resign. But, you know, he really didn't mind, for there was already another revolution starting to brew, this
Here
time
comes Italy.
back home in Italy. For the revolutionary year of 1848 was beginning to dawn, and his contacts told him that upheaval was about to sweep across Europe. So he gathered his wife, his growing family, plus around 70 redshirts, and stepped aboard a ship to take him back to Italy and the fight of his life. And, of course, once aboard, food for that many red shirts was a big factor he had to think about. It really is too bad microwaves wouldn't be invented until the 1940s, or else we would know the exact folks who could have helped him out. A factor, of course, is my favorite.
Well, that's one way to transfer into the commercial. Or at least the sponsorship. You get the idea. So, Garibaldi's on his way back. Well, with the family to Italy. Yeesh. But, wait, isn't he still banned from the country? I think I might have missed something, but I'm pretty sure. But, well, I guess see you guys next time when we head back to, you know, where. Anyway, see ya.